We've been migrating workloads from on-premise environments to AWS for the better part of a decade or more now. Given that VMware has such a huge market share in the on-premise environment, the majority of those migrations have notably been from VMware. Recently, as part of the Broadcom acquisition, we've seen enormous increases in customer costs as part of their bundling. It's wild. It sounds hyperbolic, but we've seen customers with 10 times the amount of license fees that they've forecasted before. Nobody has a 10 times vendor surprise in their budget, so we've seen that disrupt a lot of workloads. It's also helped some of the folks that have been a little bit slower to adopt AWS and let other people be at the leading edge start to get the message that now's the time to be off of VMware and onto AWS. I wanted to talk about a couple of the key considerations and how Caylent is a little bit different from potentially legacy GSIs. Or professional services firms, and also think about how that affects the customers that their staff has been trained in VMware. So taking the first things first, like how does our approach, Zach, differ from maybe a larger professional services firm that might be proposing a VMware migration?
Well, we absolutely take a do-with approach, which means that we want to work side by side with your engineers and your operations people to make sure that they are getting the knowledge that they need as we build out these environments, helping them mind map what they might consider in VMware, what terminology they use and jargon, and help them map that into AWS and understand truly what that means. Also helping them skill up on how to manage the cloud with automation. The on-prem teams may not have quite as much automation experience, CI/CD experience, or even IAC experience when they're using VMware on-prem. So we make sure that we help them build out that skill set, and we also make sure that they don't land in an environment that's too advanced for them to manage themselves. We want to make sure that the customer is really ready and capable day one to be able to manage that environment with their team. We don't want to lock you into a long-term contract with us just to manage your systems. We want you to be able to run it yourself.
That said, so staff skills are absolutely critical to being able to run day two operations and not being dependent on yet another vendor, however much they might like Caylent after the migration. I think the other piece of that too is the naive approach that we've seen a lot of customers take is map one VM onto an EC2 instance in AWS, for example. How does Caylent approach that?
While we do talk about the cloud being, you want to treat your systems as a commodity, that's not always the best approach for the first move into the cloud. You still are making your systems be capable of treating them as a commodity, and you might not be there quite yet. So what we want to make sure is that we're not just pure lift and shift as a default for everything. We want to make sure that we're looking at things that might need to be refactored. You might have plans to go to containerization in the future, and things around that. So we want it to be a little bit more bespoke and making sure that it is going to, land in the way that your team can manage it.
Now that makes sense. So the way I would summarize that is a lot of the larger professional services firms that we've seen, that we've competed against for customer migrations, their approach to migration is optimized for their staff. Whereas Caylent is optimizing our migration approach to understand how your staff is gonna manage these workloads on day two, both from the perspective of optimizing these workloads enough so that they run cost efficiently in AWS, but also so that the team is familiar with their day two operations and can run the workloads without a hiccup in your day-to-day business operations. To learn more, we'd love to have a conversation with one of the Caylent teams. Please reach out to us, and we look forward to helping you rid yourself of VMware's newly raised taxes.